Okay, so I would like to conclude today's presentation with this segment where we continue talking about the challenges and the nature of digital evidence. So we mentioned that during the seizure, a particular piece of evidence can be altered simply by untrained personnel who might start or try using computer which contains evidence which is typically or not typically but as a matter of rule is not the right thing to do during the seizure, right? So during the seizure you preserve the evidence, you collect the evidence, you're not doing the search. And if you attempt doing something like that by doing so, you could be destroying the evidence. But of course it can be done maliciously, right? So instead of just mishandling it, there could be malicious manipulation by the offender. For instance, there are cases where in many places digital evidence is removed by an individual simply by installing software such as Evidence Eliminator, but at the same time the traces of the presence of the Evidence Eliminator software could suggest that this individual had a reason to install it and use it, and traces of use it may also be found in the computer. So therefore the challenges do exist, but we just have to be prepared and keep our minds open about possible case scenarios related to digital evidence. So the facts about the digital evidence, what we know about digital evidence is that the good thing is that it can be duplicated exactly. Right, so right here we see a device that is imaging a smartphone, right? And once duplicated, it is admissible in the court of law. And it can be duplicated exactly once, and it can be duplicated multiple times. Therefore, this evidence, once collected and duplicated forensically correctly, can be duplicated furthermore to share the evidence with whoever parties are involved in the investigation, defense, civil case, and so forth. So it's a fact that the copy of the evidence can be examined just like the original. That's very important. So typically, this is why we would like to collect the original evidence, protect the content, and make an exact bit-by-bit copy only once, and then essentially move the original evidence into the secure storage area and continue our analysis based only on the exact digital copy, right? Because it's just as good as the original. Also, how do you prove that you've duplicated something exactly? How can you prove that you indeed have an authentic copy? This will be a significant topic which will be persistent through our course and future courses. We will say that for now we'll just say that the data integrity, the integrity issue with data, can be verified by secure hash algorithms. So for example, if you have an original media such as thumb drive, you can compute its hash signature or digital fingerprint before making the copy and after you made a copy. And if those digital fingerprints match, we say that we have a proof that we have duplicated the original evidence exactly, and therefore we are confident about moving forward with our examination. Typically, if there are any sort of issues, for instance, you can have a hard drive which fails to produce a copy simply because it's failing. the device produces a lot of physical errors, then that can be documented separately. But ultimately, it depends on the case by case. But in majority of cases, producing exact forensic copies, digital copies, and verifying the integrity of these copies is a streamlined and standard procedure. So that's important. And it's very hard to destroy digital evidence. For example, when the file is deleted, the data remains on disk. The operating system and file system on any device simply will just say that I'm not going to waste time removing this piece of data. It simply marks the file as being deleted, and in case if it needs this placeholder in the future, it may reuse it. But given that we nowadays have hundreds of gigabytes and oftentimes now terabytes of disk space, the operating system and the file system simply say we will use new data, and the old data, for the purposes of ease of its recovery, simply is remained in place, in its original place. So unless a computer user is trying to make a specific action to eliminate that evidence, to find it first and then wipe it with, say, zeros or some kind of random pattern, the data remains on disk. So perhaps in more than 90% of cases when the files are deleted, they simply remain on disk and oftentimes remain there for the life cycle of that particular device, that computer, that laptop or smartphone. And so, of course, when the evidence is seized and the digital copy is made, then it can be very successfully recovered using those tools that we mentioned earlier in our presentation, right? Of course, we need to follow certain techniques, but ultimately, it's a given fact that lots of this evidence under normal circumstances is recoverable. Oftentimes, a person may try committing a crime, especially in corporate world. They may try to, for instance, they know that new operating systems are going to be installed on devices, and they use a computer which they know perhaps overnight or next day will be erased, and the new operating system is going to be installed. Even then, the individual may not be aware that a company has a backup policy which on a regular basis manufactures backups of the data. And for instance, the user may try to use webmail or corporate mail to send out some kind of a threat mail, or perhaps disseminate inappropriate information or whatever, and they're pretty confident that the information will be erased. However, even if it's erased, sometimes and often times there may be a backup tape found which will still contain the original image of that computer, and therefore the traces of user activity are still recoverable. So as you can see, this today is a pretty long presentation. I was able to cover plenty of topics. We already talked about the internet and corporate networks and Cyber Trail Challenge, and we had a chance to discuss our current homework briefly in class. But hopefully this presentation today, the series of presentations, covers our first topic, which is talking about the computer crimes and our role as forensic investigators in trying to access and analyze the digital evidence. So I will see you next time. Thank you very much.